Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Robin Vincent. Today on the show, there's a hazardous waste site in the middle of Detroit, and neighbors say they've been kept in the dark about what's happening there.
Now its license is up for renewal, and the community wants answers.
Plus, from kitchens to runways to soundboards, Detroit creativity is everywhere.
WDET's new series, Container, is the project bringing it all together. We'll hear the latest episode.
Also, Detroit is getting a real kick out of soccer, and the city's only privately financed pro stadium is on the way. We'll hear what this move means for the club and the community.
And a highway project once billed a reparative has been delayed. What does the pause on I-375 mean for remembering Black Bottom and Paradise Valley?
But first, Dan Gilbert's Hudson's Tower was sold as a comeback symbol for Detroit, a shiny promise of jobs, growth, and a Woodward Avenue reborn. But behind the glass, there's a complicated story. And as is often the case with massive developments in Detroit, it's a story about money, or rather, problems following the money. State officials approved over $600 million in tax breaks across several Bedrock projects, including Hudson's. Locally, Gilbert also won a $60 million city tax abatement, with the Downtown Development Authority playing a key role in downtown financing. But the returns are uncertain. A University of Michigan study does project the incentives could generate benefits through 2052. Still, critics say many of the promised jobs are simply relocations from GM's headquarters and other Gilbert buildings, rather than net new opportunities for Detroiters. And the flow of public money is murky. So to see if the subsidies are paying off, the Detroit Free Press is suing the Michigan Department of Treasury to gain access to state records. Now, this isn't just about one skyscraper. It's about whether billions in public subsidies serve Detroiters or developers. Joining us now is Detroit Free Press reporter J.C. Reindl. He's helping lead this fight for information. J.C., welcome to the Metro.
Thank you for having me on.
So let's start with the big picture, if we could. What was promised when Dan Gilbert's Hudson's site was pitched to taxpayers?
Yeah, it's going back some time, back to 2017 and 2018. And it was called a transformational brownfield because they're supposed to go above and beyond a traditional brownfield. And there was a lot of promises for positive economic activity, hundreds of new jobs and buildings that are going to be rehabbed or built new, like the Hudson's Tower and the office block next to it, and also an expansion to what was then known as the CompuWare building, now One Campus Martius. So there were 4 buildings in that package, which all added up to $618 million worth of subsidies, development incentives over 30 years.
Okay, and so how did state and city leaders justify these massive incentives?
Yeah, there was a lot of presentations done at the time, a lot of meetings, a lot of public hearings, and a lot of PowerPoints showing there was going to be a lot of job creation, new jobs, not just jobs that were shuttling, for like existing jobs going from an older building, to a sexy new one at the Hudson site or someplace like that. So there was expectations for a lot of net new economic activity, and not just a game of musical chairs where maybe you move from an older building to the new one, or maybe from Southfield to downtown.
Okay, let's follow the money now as best we can. JC, walk us through the scale of public funding between the state's transformational brownfield program and local abatements. How much taxpayer money is actually on the table here?
Yeah, well, there was about a $60 million tax abatement just for the Hudson site, but our Freedom of Information Act lawsuit is specifically looking at a program called the Transformational Brownfield, and that added up to $618 million over 30 years. And one unique aspect of that program, which is why a lot of elected officials do like it, is no one is writing a check to developers. Once you have to develop a site, and then it works as a tax capture. So whatever new taxes are generated at the site, the developer gets to capture those. So, for instance, if you're at the expansion to the One Campus Martius building, right at the back of it, if you have an office job in there, a portion of the state income tax, if you're an employee and you work there, instead of that going to the state, that does go to the developer to help pay for the cost of that development. So that is one important thing to note, is that no one is writing a check to Gilbert's real estate firm Bedrock for this. They do have to perform to get the benefit of the incentive there.
Okay, so that explains the allure and the palatable nature of this program. But I'm wondering, why is it so hard for the public to know where the money is going?
Yeah, our Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, we're actually suing the Michigan Treasury because in the very fine print of the transformational brownfield program, it says that there has to be annual reports done each year on these project sites. The 4 project sites that were in the Bedrock, mega development, and so you have these annual progress reports that they have to do. They have to submit to the Michigan Treasury. And they would give some really good information, explaining who, what employers are setting up shop in the redeveloped or the new buildings, the number of employees. Maybe give some identifying characteristics of who those employees work for, if they're new employees or perhaps employees that just moved over a building or not. So we're trying to get information on that, and that is what prompted the lawsuit against Michigan Treasury, is that they were very reluctant to give the information. Said no, said it is private taxpayer information. The problem, as our lawsuit lays out, and we had some very important help on this, legal help from the Mackinac Center for Public Policy, and we were arguing that does violate the Michigan Constitution, where public monies have to be accounted for. And, by nature, if you say that these annual reports just blanket across the board, you can't see them, the private, that means there's really no way at all for the public to assess, how the program is working, if it's working as intended.
Okay, so Treasury says releasing this information would violate taxpayer confidentiality, and you all are saying it's a violation of the Michigan Constitution. So that sounds promising. I mean, what kinds of conversations have you been having with the Mackinac Center about this and the promise of this lawsuit?
Yeah, the Mackinac Center has been successful before for a very big Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. Some years back, about 4 years ago, they did win a similar lawsuit for the mega tax credits. That goes back to like the late 2000s. And so the automakers, got some very, very big tax credits out of that. And there was some secrecy that the Mackinac Center felt was inappropriate for public monies. And they succeeded in court in getting some transparency for that program. So they have a very good track record of, taking on cases where the public would win if they win.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to something that you've mentioned already that we've discussed, and that is a central promise of Hudson's was job creation. And JC, your reporting shows many of those jobs are relocations. What does that mean for Detroiters expecting new opportunities?
Yeah, it kind of depends. The good thing about the Hudson site, and we're focusing more on actually the expansion of One Campus Martius, but the Hudson site obviously is part of that, is that we do have a beautiful building in our midst, and there are going to be going to be jobs there. GM, they're not leaving Detroit, they're not going to Warren, put it for their headquarters, they're staying in Detroit. You're still going to have those jobs. I think Ben Johnson, his law firm, is staying in downtown, moving over there. And we do have a lot of new retail opportunities there. Aloe just opened this weekend. going to have a beautiful hotel and the skyscraper and some beautiful luxury condos. But the subsidy was sold to the public, anticipating a lot of net new jobs. So it'd be great if they still are successful and can fill that building up with, jobs that weren't in downtown before. I think Detroit would benefit, more job opportunities for everyone. But that building itself, it's just opening now. Actually, the left side, the office block, the skyscraper itself is not going to open until 2027. So they do have some time. Hopefully they do land, a big employer that can really move the needle in downtown.
This is the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. My guest is Detroit Free Press reporter J.C. Reindl. We're talking about the fight for transparency in Dan Gilbert's Hudson's Tower development and whether massive public subsidies are truly serving Detroiters. JC, locally, Bedrock received a $60 million city tax abatement, which we have discussed, and the Downtown Development Authority plays a key role in downtown development deals. How does that complicate accountability, and why should residents care?
Yeah, that is, more public monies, and there should be some transparency when public dollars are used. Because oftentimes, there's a lot of promises that are given in public hearings and presentations when developers seek incentives, at the beginning. But there tends to be less attention, years later, once the project is done, to see whether they are fulfilling the promises that were made when they had to get approval for those incentives.
Some listeners might say, JC, every city offers tax breaks to attract development. What's at stake here that makes Detroit's case different?
I think, this question, applies nationwide, really. One thing that is different, though, for Detroit is that even before I moved here, for many years, you just didn't have a lot of new jobs, coming to the city.
Yeah.
So it's just great. Ever since Mr. Gilbert moved his company here in right around 2010, we have had a lot of jobs coming to the city that weren't here before. So hopefully that can continue.
Do you think this fits into a broader pattern of opaque development deals in the city?
Yeah. Each program is different. Each program has different disclosure requirements to it. There's a real patchwork of development incentives. You have different tax breaks. You have tax captures, which is what the brownfield program is, a transformational brownfield, where you have to generate the future tax revenue in order to get it if you're a developer. And each program does have its own unique, disclosure requirements. And I think there's a lot of public hearings for these, which is good. But again, it's great, I think, when the public has an opportunity to assess, how the program is working out, whether it's working, and whether the promises that were made when developers were trying to get the incentives, whether they're keeping those promises.
I want to stay on that notion of the public because Detroiters are the main character in this story. And this story, it's about more than subsidies. It's about watchdog journalism itself. Talk about why this reporting is so vital when it comes to following the money, holding powerful people accountable, and when it comes to residents in the city of Detroit.
Yeah, this information that we're trying to seek is hard to get out. You're not going to find it on a press release or a Twitter feed or anything like that. This is the type of information that you have to fight for, and it's very important. So the press is playing an important role here to make sure the Treasury is offering these details and about how public monies are being spent.
Detroit Free Press reporter J.C. Reindl, thank you for your reporting and thank you for joining me on the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
This is the Metro on WDET. 2 years ago, we launched our annual listener survey, and your responses informed big programming changes, including the Metro. Your survey responses will continue to inform our programming directly. So let us know how we're doing. Go to WDET.org/survey and take a few minutes to fill it out. And thank you. We're always listening in other ways, too. We're wondering if you have story tips or maybe just some kind words or a nasty gram. We'll take it all. Email metro@wdet.org. Up next on the Metro, a hazardous waste facilities license is up for renewal in Detroit. The Detroit documenters unpack why residents are up in arms about it. We'll be right back on the Metro. Stay with us.